Here we are, KDS Deep, the final mission of Alternate Rundown 5. If you're involved with the lore of GTFO, you know that this is a special place in the complex, but before we can get to the heart of this area, we're gonna have to make our way through many different challenges. The further we go in, the more powerful the enemies and difficult the alarms become. Waiting for you at the end, though, is the gateway to even deeper areas of the complex. So if you want to escape from this nightmare of a prison you're stuck in, you're gonna have to brave through it all and once again prove you're the prisoner to get the job done. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the alternate R5E1 level guide. As always, we're starting off with your loadout, and we're going to be bringing in with us the old classic, a bio tracker, a mine deployer, a C-foam launcher, and then any sentry of your choice. The reason for the bio tracker is that there will be a few shadow type enemies in this level. There's going to be a lot of infectious fog and pitch black darkness filled zones that can hinder our sight here and there. There will be a lot of scouts from start to finish, so being able to tag them and the scout wave, if we do happen to wake them up, can always help us out. And of course, just having all the information the biotracker can provide to you and your teammates will make it a lot easier to make those split-second decisions, and you'll more than likely be making a lot of them in this level. When it comes to the mine deploy and the C-foam launcher, we're going to be using these to deal with pretty much every single one of the alarms in this level. Plenty of doors we can shut, mine, and C-foam, and there will be some moments where we're going to want to re-C-foam doors over and over again, just to simply keep the enemies out of our room for as long as we possibly can until we get those scans done. And then when it comes to that sentry, this is going to give us some extra firepower during some of the alarms, and maybe even a few other situations here and there. As for why I recommend any sentry of your choice and not a specific one, is because really all four of the sentries could work for this level. There will be moments where certain sentries will fall off a bit, but there are also moments where they will shine quite brightly, so really it's up to you and your teammates which sentry you want to bring. Auto sentry for the stagger capabilities, shotgun sentry for a little bit of stagger but also just high rate fire and close quarter combat, sniper sentry to deal with the bigger, more powerful enemies from a distance, or if you just want to have a overall safe sentry that works for almost every single moment of this level, bring in the burst sentry with you, because let's be honest, the burst sentry is the king of all the sentries at the current moment, and it has been for quite a while, so you can never really go wrong with bringing in a burst sentry. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to find a specific terminal and put a command into that terminal, which is always going to be located at the end of the level inside zone 545. Meanwhile, you and your teammates will be starting off inside zone 528. Now, immediately upon dropping down to this level, you're going to be granted 100% infection, which means if you want to play a little bit aggressively for the first portion of this level, by all means go on ahead, because even if you do get hit by enemies, you're going to lose that HP to the infection anyway. Just be cautious of the two scouts patrolling about in this zone, because the thing about the scouts throughout this entire level, no matter what type of scout it is if you wake them up, they will only spawn in giants and hybrids. So even though you're playing a little bit aggressive at the beginning, try not to wake up those scouts if you can help it. Aside from all that though, in this zone, there will be a few resources here and there you're going to want to collect, and there will also be a color key card, which you're going to need in order to unlock the security door to zone 529. Once you've gone throughout this area and cleared all the enemies, gotten the resources and that key card though, you can then go to the western side where we find that security door to 529, plug the key card into it, and then do the full team scan tied to that door. Now, zone 529 itself is completely covered in infectious fog, and in here there will be a fair amount of giant strikers as well as a few regular enemies. There are also going to be a decent amount of spitters, so be careful of them, that way they don't get a cheeky kill on you. And while there won't be any resources for you to collect, there will be some fog repellers, which you're definitely going to want to have, and there's also a generator in here for the security door to zone 530. So we're just going to go throughout this area, clear out all the enemies in these rooms, and then go to the southern side where we'll find the security door to zone 531. This door is just simply a full team scan, and zone 531 itself is just one big room. In here, more enemies to deal with, 2 more scouts patrolling about, as well as a few resources for you to collect. And once you've cleared out this zone, you'll go to the southern side of it where you find a security door to zone 532. This door though is going to have a class 3 mixed surge alarm tied to it, so let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see, there are a few different possible spawn locations for these enemies, and what we're going to be doing with the doors is this door right here. We are going to leave this open as we need to preserve this for an upcoming alarm, but these two doors we can just go on ahead, shut, mine, and C-foam both of them just to delay the enemies as much as we can, and then the sentry you could just position somewhere near the entrance to the room depending on exactly what type of sentry you brought in with you. Once you got everything set up though and you're good to go, you will activate the alarm, and while you're doing the first full team scan, I would recommend that 4-use med pack you found earlier. You're going to want to heal everybody on the team once each, because during the surge alarm, not only do you have to deal with regular strikers and shooters, but there will also be a few hybrids who spawn in, and if you're only at 15% HP, all that you need to die is just a single striker tongue and either a shooter projectile or a hybrid projectile, and you're out of there. Once you are good though, assuming you have survived the surge alarm, you can deal with all the enemies who are still left alive, and then head into zone 532 itself. Now, zone 532, in here, there are going to be 2 more scouts patrolling about, and there are going to be a lot, and I mean a lot of giant strikers. So I would highly recommend do your best to go throughout here. Every single one of these enemies do have to be killed off, so go for the isolated giants first, maybe get rid of the scouts if you find a good opportunity to, and just make your way through here bit by bit. Once you made your way through the entirety of the zone though, you'll be able to find a few resources, including a 2-use disinfectant pack, which I would recommend you use that on 2 different people right when you get it. And once you made your way through here and you've gotten everything from inside the zone, you can then go to the far southeastern corner of it where you'll find a security door to zone 533. Now, this security door is going to have an error alarm tied to it, and this error alarm can be deactivated using a terminal that's always located inside zone 530, the one from earlier in the level. However, we still need a power cell in order to unlock that security door, so once we activate this error alarm, top priority is to actually get to the power cell and then go back to that zone so we can shut off the error alarm and no longer have to deal with it. As for the error alarm itself, it will spawn in about 5 regular strikers or shooters roughly every 30 seconds, although sometimes, or actually fairly often, 1 or 2 of the enemies in that error wave will be replaced with hybrids. So more often than not, you're going to get 4 regular enemies and 1 hybrid roughly every 30 seconds. And I recommend that the best way to deal with this is just simply stick together as a team. It's pretty easy to just melee kill those smaller boys, and if all 4 of you are together, even meleeing a hybrid isn't all that big of a deal. But if you split up way too much, it's pretty easy for people to get picked off, either by the error alarm enemies or the enemies in the zones you're heading into, as there will be a fair amount of them. Once you and your team are good to go though, you can activate that security door, do the full team scan, open it up, and then go right into the zone. Inside zone 533, there will be resources you need to deal with, regular strikers and shooters, as well as a few hybrids you're going to want to kill off. But really, what you're going to want to do is use that terminal in the first room to ping the color keycard, which will always be located inside the zone, because the next area we want to head to, zone 534, requires that keycard in order to unlock the door. And as you make your way through, once you got to the resources and that key card, you can then go back towards the beginning of it to that security door to 534 and start setting up for it. Because once you plug the key card into it, you'll see that there is a class 3 alarm tied to the door. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are a few different locations enemies could possibly spawn from. So what I recommend you do is make sure all 3 of these doors I've highlighted are shut, mined, and C-foam, and then you can also place your sentry up towards that northern open security door. That way if a wave does spawn from there, they have to go through the line of fire of that sentry. And that's really all there is to setting up for this alarm. Easiest way I find is to wait for a wave to spawn in. Once it spawns in, rush out, deal with them, and then quickly shut my C-foam the doors, and then immediately pull the alarm. Once you have activated the alarm and you finish every single one of the scans, deal with any of the enemies who are still left alive, and then you can head inside zone 534 itself. In here, there's going to be more enemies to deal with, a fair amount of small boys, but there will also be a few giant strikers here and there, more resources for you to collect, and there will also be a power cell, and the terminal is usually located at the far end of the zone. So just like usual, make your way through here as a team, mailing most of the enemies if you can, grabbing resources and resupplying with them, holding on to med packs as you're going to want to save those for an upcoming alarm you're about to deal with. And once you've gotten everything from in this zone and the power cell, it is now time for you to backtrack all the way towards the beginning of the level, back to where that security door to 530 is located at. Now, once you get there, you're going to want to plug the power cell into the generator, but you're not going to want to go to the security door quite yet, as that security door is going to have a class 3 alarm tied to it, where every single one of the scans is going to be a lengthy full team scan. And since we're in a room completely covered in infectious fog, we need to make sure we properly set up for this. So, as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies could spawn from. So what I like to do is make sure both of the doors that are leading into my room are shut, mined, and C-foamed, and then the 2 eastern doors are just simply shut. You don't need to mine them or C-foam them. Northeastern door, that should be preserved. No reason that should be broken down before this point. That southeastern door though, that could potentially be gone because of the previous surge alarm, in which case don't worry about it too much. As for the sentry, I usually like to place it inside the room facing towards that southeastern door, as more often than not enemies will be taking that route to get to us. But that's really all there is to the alarm. If you got everything set up and you've healed people a fair amount, so at least everybody has one use of med pack actively on them, so they're not sitting at about 15 or 20% HP, but more so closer to about 40% HP, dealing with the alarm isn't all that bad, especially if you have a little bit of leftover C-foam, as you could just re-C-foam the door they're trying to come through and buy you and your teammates extra time. Once you have finished every single one of the scans though, you're going to want to spend a little time to deal with any of the leftover alarm door enemies. Make sure you're back to just simply dealing with air alarm enemies, and then you're going to open up that security door and go into there. Inside zone 530, on the southern portion of the room, about halfway through, you'll be able to find that terminal, but in this room there will be a few sleeping giant strikers, so be cautious of them. Usually, depending on where the enemies are located at, I'll just have 1 or 2 people quickly rush to the terminal to get that command in, while the other people just stay near the entrance of the room and either try to deal with the air enemies with melee, or just simply by shooting them. But if you are able to make it to the terminal and deactivate the air alarm, and then also deal with all the enemies who are still alive due to the air alarm or who are just sleeping in the room, you are pretty much in the clear. Nothing else is going to be coming after you, and you can now take some time to just relax, grab nearby resources, and put yourself in a bit of a better position. As for this zone, aside from the giants and that terminal, there will be a disinfect station in this room, which you can use to get rid of all the infection across the team. There are going to be a lot of resources, ammo, tool, and medipacks, and there will also be a fair amount of fog repeller stacks. So once you've taken care of everything, just go throughout here, distribute those resources best as you can, disinfect of course, grab those fog repellers, and then use those to get back through the previous zone without gaining any infection. And of course, make sure you bring some stacks of fog repellers with you, as you will be needing them a little bit later in the level. And you're going to backtrack all the way to zone 533. Once you get into here, you can then take some time to look throughout all of 533 and 534 in case you left any resources behind. And once you've collected everything in the level up to this point, you then go to the southern end of the zone where you'll find a security door to zone 535. This door is just simply going to have a full team scan tied to it, but the zone itself is actually quite dangerous. In here, there are going to be a lot of sleeping baby strikers, a fair amount of sleeping giant strikers, and 2 birthers towards the middle of the room. And usually the front portion of this room has a lot of enemies in it. Something you can do though to make this a little bit easier is stand in the location where you see I'm at, shoot your gun just simply once, and then very quickly run through the door. What this will do is wake up most of the enemies near the entrance to that security door, but because you're running out of the room quickly enough, they are not going to scream in there as they are 2 rooms away from you, so they do not wake up the birthers or anything else further in, and you just let all those enemies come out to you. You just simply deal with them either by shooting or meleeing, depending on how much stuff you woke up, and then this will make it easier to actually get into the room and get to the far left side of it, or right side, depending on which one's clear, and just simply sneak your way through. There are no resources in this zone, so all you want to do is just simply make it from the beginning of it all the way to the other side of it, and there you'll find security door to 536, this one being a full team scan as well. And once you finish that scan, you can then head to the zone, but things are still going to be quite as difficult, because zone 536 is covered in pitch black darkness, and throughout this zone, which only consists of 2 different rooms, there's going to be a fair amount of chargers, giant chargers, a single charger scout patrolling about, as well as a sleeping tank. And how you want to make your way through here can sort of vary a little bit, of course, depending on where the enemies are, but also where that charger scout is located at. If he's in the very first room and he's somewhere near the entrance and there aren't too many other enemies by it, you could just simply C-foam him and then just go for a melee takedown while he's encased in it, or you could wait for him to get to one side of the room and then just simply sneak in through the other side of the room and get into the second room of this zone. It's very important though that you're careful with the first room of 536, because if you wake stuff up and you have to shoot, you are almost guaranteed to wake up everything that's behind you, and wake up all those babies and giants and both of those birthers. Well, that's a pretty quick way to end your run as well. So make your way through the first room, get into the second one, shut the doors behind you, because then even if something goes wrong and you have to shoot, you're just simply dealing with the enemies in that room. As for the second one, again, you gotta just sneak your way through, or you can melee kill enemies or shoot them, however you and your teammates see best fit. Towards the far end of it though, you'll be able to find another security door, this one to 537, and this door is going to have a class 3 stealth scan tied to it. Now, when it comes to zone 537 itself, this is a fairly large zone with a lot of different rooms throughout it, and there are a lot of enemies and resources as well. Throughout this zone, you can expect to see regular strikers and shooters, giant strikers, as well as a fair amount of hybrids, and there's going to be a total of 4 different scouts patrolling about. But you're going to make your way through the zone, room by room, dealing with every single one of the enemies, taking tabs of where those resources are, and once you've cleared everything inside this area, then you can go throughout it, grab all like the 2-use and 3-use packs and just use them up immediately, and then either hold on to the 4-use or 5-use packs or just simply note where they are if you're not able to pick them up. Then where you're going to want to head to next. There's actually a few different security doors in this area, but the only one we have access to is the one towards the beginning of the area to zone 538. This security door though is going to have an error alarm tied to it. This error alarm spawning in 4 regular chargers roughly every 30 seconds. And just like the error alarm earlier in the level, there is a terminal we can use to deactivate this one. However, that terminal will always be located inside zone 540. So what we are going to want to do is once we finish the full team scan tied to the security door, we're going to have 1 or 2 people stay outside who are going to be dealing with those chargers as they approach, and the other people are going to be heading into zone 538, as in there are going to be a few regular chargers as well as a decent amount of giant chargers, and there's going to be a lot of boxes and lockers throughout this zone, but the only thing you really care to grab is the color keycard, which will be located in one of them. The thing is though, there is no terminal inside the zone, and there's no resources to collect either. So you're just going to have to run around opening up box after box after box until you finally find that keycard. It's a little bit of a needle in a haystack style room. Once you do find that color keycard though, you and your teammates are going to leave this area. They go to the far southern side of zone 537 where you find a security door to 539. This door is just simply going to have a full team scan tied to it. And once you finish the scan, you can open up the door, and then I would just say walk in, shoot your gun, and pull the first room, as there would just be a few regular chargers throughout this zone. Just let them come down to you because the upper portion of zone 539 is completely covered in infectious fog, which is why I stated you're going to want to be bringing some fog repellers from you earlier, as you're going to need them for right here and now. Thankfully though, there is also a fog turbine inside zone 539. If you get lucky, it'll be right there in the entrance, so you could actually just grab that and hold on to your fog repellers for now. But the main thing is you want to just simply pull the first room, let the chargers come to you, deal with them, make sure you're dealing with the chargers from behind from the airwave as well. And once you have dealt with all of the enemies in the first room, just go up the staircase towards the top. Up there, you'll be able to find a big door in front of you. Get that door open immediately, as that is important for an upcoming alarm. And then you're just going to go into that next room, pull all the enemies, deal with them, and then you're going to start setting up for that alarm, because there's no resources inside zone 539 you need to collect, so you just simply make your way through here as quickly as you can. At the far southern end of that second room, you will find the security door to 540. This door is going to have a class 4 mixed alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for these enemies, of which are going to be just charger type enemies, sometimes even very rarely giant chargers, so be cautious of them. And there's only one entrance into your room they are going to take, so all you really have to do is just get in here, make sure you're ready to go, and then wait for a wave to spawn in. Once they spawn in, rush out, kill them, then get back into the room, shut the door, mine it, and C-foam it, and then quickly run down to the south, activate that security door, do the first scan together as a team, and then once you finish it, the person with the C-foam launcher, if you still have leftover C-foam, run back to that door and try to keep it C-foamed for as long as you can, or at least towards the end of the scans. Once the alarm has been finished though, you can then open up the security door to zone 540 and head into there. But of course, be careful of this area, because zone 540 is a fairly big zone, although the first room is not all that big. And throughout here, there's going to be more regular chargers and a fair amount of giant chargers as well. So blast your way through that first room. In here, there will be some resources potentially, as well as another fog turbine, although you do not need to worry about that whatsoever at the time being. You're just going to want to simply blast your way through the first room, get into the second room, blast your way through there, and then just keep going down south until you eventually get into the third room, because down there will be 3 different terminals, one of which is going to be the one you're going to need to use to deactivate the current error alarm. Once you got to the terminal though, one person hops on it, uses the command to deactivate the error alarm, the other people just simply continue to defend against any chargers or giant chargers coming after you, and once the error alarm is deactivated, you just simply have to kill anything that's still left alive, and once again we are now in the clear, or at least for a little bit we will be. Once you have taken care of that, then you can go throughout this area, grab any resources that you left behind, and if you're looking a little low on resources, you can then backtrack a little bit to zone 537, go in there, grab some more ammo packs, med packs, or whatever it is you might have left behind, and once you are then ready for the next portion of the level, come back to zone 540, because on the far western side of that zone, you'll be able to find a security door to zone 541. This one having a class 5 mixed alarm tied to it that's only going to be spawning in shadow type enemies. And as you can see with this map overlay, once again, there's only one possible spawn location for the enemies, which is up to the north. And even though there are 2 doors that lead directly into our room, we're going to be leaving the western door open and shutting the eastern door. The reason for this is because we want to have a bit of a funnel strategy. We don't want enemies coming at us from both directions, and having them come from the west over the east is much more preferable because they're all coming from one central direction, which makes it really easy. Just plop down our sentry and have a good funnel with it. If we try to funnel enemies in through the eastern side of the zone, it doesn't work all that well because enemies are much further away, so we can't really tag them and actually let the sentry do work. And if they come at us from the eastern side of the room, there's actually 3 different routes they could take to get to us, which is why I like to have that western door open and funnel the enemies in there. But once you're good to go, activate the alarm, get to work on all the scans, and once you finish it, just deal with any of the shadows who are still left alive, go out, pack up your sentry, and then you're going to want to also grab one of the 2 fog turbines and bring it with you, as zone 541 itself is almost completely covered in infectious fog. And this zone is quite dangerous, probably one of the more dangerous ones of the entire level, because in here, not only is the entire area covered in infectious fog, but it's also covered in pitch black darkness, and the only type of enemies you can expect to see in here would be shadow type enemies. So shadow strikers, shadow giants, as well as 3 shadow scouts patrolling about. And there are a lot of different rooms to this zone. In them, of course, there are going to be those enemies, but there will be more resources to collect, as well as a pretty fair amount of disinfectant packs. So if your team has a lot of infection, these will help out tremendously. And of course, there will be that colored keycard you need in order to get into the security door to zone 542 from earlier. So you're going to make your way through here room by room. You kind of just sneak past the enemies or melee them, or if you want to, you can also go guns crazy. It all just simply comes down to what your resources look like. And really all you technically need is that color key card. So if you get lucky and it's in one of the first few rooms and you don't really need any of the other resources in here, you could just simply leave and not have to worry about dealing with most of those shadows. Either way though, once you have found the color key card and you gotten all the resources you want, you are then just going to want to backtrack your way to zone 537 once more. Once you get in here, you could drop off the fog turbine as you no longer need it for the rest of the level. And of course, if there are any resources in this zone or any other nearby zone that you left behind, go on ahead and grab those and utilize those right now, as we are about to enter into the final part of this level. To that security door to zone 542, not only is this a blood door that will be spawning in a few regular chargers, but it also has another error alarm tied to it. This error alarm spawning in 4 giant strikers roughly every 40 seconds, and the terminal that you can use to deactivate it is located in zone 544, which is the second to last zone of the level. Once you are good to go though, you can put the key card in, activate the blood door, which will initiate full team scan, do that, and then once it's finished, open it up, fall back a little bit. The mine will kill most, if not every single one of the regular charges from the blood door, but zone 542 itself is covered in pitch black darkness, and in here, the only type of enemies you can expect to see are going to be giant chargers, and there will be a fair amount of them, so if any of them are in the first room, they will be coming after you as well. And of course, you have to worry about that giant error alarm from behind you, and also one other thing. This blood door, it used to spawn in a tank when you opened it, which is why you can see me dealing with that in the background footage, but they have replaced that tank. Instead, it is going to be spawning in a snatcher who will either spawn inside the zone further into it, or it's going to be spawning from behind you either to the north or to the south. So you're going to want to keep an eye out for it, because that snatcher coming in, grabbing one of your teammates and dragging them off can put you in a bit of an awkward situation. But once the mine has exploded and you've dealt with anything that might be sleeping inside the first room, then you sort of just split up a little bit. You'll have some people who stay outside, preferably people with giant killing weapons who are going to focus on dealing with those giant strikers as they approach, while the other people are going to be going into the zone and looking around for the resources as well as the power cell that they need. Thankfully, the terminal of the zone is in the very first room, so you can use that to ping the exact location of everything. And then there's also going to be a lot of ammunition throughout the zone, and I recommend you grab as much of it as you possibly can. You don't necessarily need to rush this part because of how much ammunition is given to you. It's really more so just important to make sure that you're always doing something, either dealing with enemies or looking around. And also make sure you get rid of all the giant chargers in this zone. So every time you go into a new room, I would just say pull the room and let them come to you and deal with them from a distance. That way you don't have to worry about the error alarm or anything else waking them up, and now you're getting pincered by giant strikers and giant chargers. you will eventually find that power cell, and once you have it and all the resources you need, you can then leave this area, go to the southern end of zone 537, then go to the west a bit where you'll find the security door to zone 543, and then just plug that power cell into the nearby generator that will unlock the security door, and then you can start setting up for the alarm, because zone 543's door will have a class 5 mixed alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, not only are there a few different locations enemies could possibly spawn from, but all the enemies that spawn in during this alarm will be giant strikers and rarely even a hybrid or two. Now, because these are a bunch of giant enemies and we don't really want to spend too much tool on this alarm as we want to save mines and C-foam for the next alarm we have to deal with, we're just going to be shutting every single one of the doors that I've highlighted, and that's about it. No mining, no C-foaming. If you want to, you could place down your sentry near where you and your teammates are, although if you have something like an auto sentry or burst sentry, maybe hold off, as that's not going to do too much work against giants. But once you got everything set up, you're just going to activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, do every single one of them, and once you have finished all of them, deal with any of the giants who are still left alive, and then open up the next security door and head into zone 543. Now in here, the only type of enemies as far as I'm aware that you're going to deal with are going to be giant strikers, although potentially there could be a few regular ones. It's been a little while, so I might be wrong on that one. And in here, there are going to be a lot of resources, mostly ammunition packs, so of course grab more ammo, that way whoever's defending against the giants will not run out of it. There also could potentially be a few C-foam products like grenades and trip mines, which can definitely help out for the upcoming alarm. And also, there's going to be a few doors throughout the zone you want to make sure don't get broken down no matter what. At the far western side of the zone, you'll find a security door to zone 544, but this security door is going to have a class 4 sustained surge alarm tied to it. A sneaky thing about it though is also when you approach that security door, not activate it, but just simply get close to it, it's actually going to be spawning a snatcher in. So before you start setting up for the alarm and shutting doors and whatnot, one person is going to want to run over to the door to initiate that snatcher, that way it'll come towards you, then you're going to want to deal with it, and once you grab all the resources and supplied and you're ready for the alarm, then you can actually start setting up for it properly. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are two possible spawn locations for enemies during this surge alarm. So what I recommend you do is get into the final room, wait for an air alarm wave to spawn in. Once those giants are there, rush out and kill them, and as soon as they're dead, very quickly start setting up your defenses. These three doors I've highlighted, you're going to want to shut, mine, and C-foam every single one of them. Sentry will be in the room with you facing towards that final door. And once you're good to go, just run over to the door. One person can pull it early as the first scan will not be near the door, but a little bit away from it. And then you're just going to work on all four of these sustained scans one after another. Now, when it comes to these sustained scans, they will always be in the exact same location from run to run. And the nice thing about it is it's pushing you closer towards that door that you shut towards the entrance of the room. So once you finish the second scan, if enemies are already on that door leading into your room, banging it down, you can just have the person with the C-foam launcher, or if anybody has C-foam grenades, just quickly run over there and re-C-foam the door, then come back and do the third scan. And then you can maybe even C-foam the door from a distance while on that third scan to just keep enemies out for even longer. If you have C-foam trip mines, you can also place them near the door on the inside of your room, so once the door does break open and the mine goes off, more C-foam gets sprayed everywhere, and you're just going to continue working on the scans until you get all four of them completed. Once you have finished all four of the scans though, one person is going to immediately rush over to that door to open it up, since it is an Apex door, so it has a longer opening animation. Once it opens up all the way, one person is just going to run into the room. 544 has no enemies or resources in it, but at the back end of it will be that terminal, and they're just going to simply get on that terminal, deactivate the air alarm, while the other three people just continue to defend and deal with any of the enemies who are still left alive. Once you get the air alarm deactivated and there's nothing left alive, you and your teammates can regroup, go to the far western side of zone 544. There you'll find a security door to 545. This door is just simply a full team scan. Once you finish it, you can head right on inside. No enemies, no resources, nothing whatsoever. Just simply right there in front of you will be a terminal. Once you approach it, the game will tell you the command you have to put into it. And once you put the command into the terminal, a full team scan will appear. And once you finish the full team scan, the fog in the level is going to change. It will no longer be infectious, and its elevation will change by a fair amount, which will sort of reveal a cool surprise right here at the end. And then right underneath you, next to a drop container, there is going to be an extraction scan, which once you step into it, no alarm, nothing initiates. You just simply have to get on the extraction scan, wait for it to get 100%. And once you do, you and your teammates have completed alternate R5E1. And that's all there is to it. In my eyes, R5E1 has always been a very well designed level. It feels like a proper E-tier mission due to its difficulty. It has some cool concepts in it, like starting off with max infection, which I enjoy quite a bit. There are multiple memorable segments throughout it that keep the level interesting, but it also doesn't feel like it drags on for far too long. There's the cell skip method, which is a very fun alternate way to play this mission, which if you and your teammates have not tried that out yet, highly recommend do a cell skip run. It is a lot of fun with the right group. And that final room was absolutely breathtaking when I first saw it back in the original. The lore build up to KDS Deep, followed by the ending, which directly tied to Rundown 6 and the 1.0 release of the game, was a great way for 10 Chambers to bring the game out of its early access stage. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, before I start releasing some of that alternate R6 content I've got, I have a special video to show off that many of you have been pestering me about for months on end now, so I'm sure all of you will be happy that it's finally being released, and hopefully I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.